here's your host, Brandon Lauren Maxwell.
All right, we are live, and I've got Paulie joining me soon. We're going to be watching the convention speech here, which looks like they're running a little bit early. I don't know. Is this her right here? Looks like it is. Just in time. So we're going to watch this, and then we're going to give some feedback afterwards.
Good evening. Thank you.
And then Paulie should be popping in soon.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we started right in time. Actually, they're starting early. They had said 45. So this is perfect. Here's Paulie with us. And
Hey.
Let's go ahead and bring in the sound. Can you hear it, Paulie?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
You could probably raise it up a little bit loud. No, I'm good. Yeah, I'll raise it up.
Thank you.
You can-
Thank you.
All right, here we go.
Thank
What's
you,
happening,
everyone.
everybody?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all.
What are they saying,
Thank you
USA?
all.
Okay.
Yeah, it is still kind of
Okay,
funny
we gotta
listening
get
to
some business.
Democrats
We gotta
chant
get to some
USA.
business. Okay. Thank you all. Okay. Thank you. 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 Please. Thank you.
Wow.
Please.
Why is
Thank
she saying thank you so
very
much?
Ugh,
Thank you, everyone. Thank
Good
you.
Lord.
oh my gosh.
Thank you. Okay, let's get to business.
She
Let's
might-
get to business.
She might be really
All right.
nervous.
Oh, I'm sure.
So let me start by thanking my most incredible husband, Doug, for being an incredible partner to me, an incredible father to Cole and Ella, and happy anniversary, Dougie. I love you so very much. To our President Joe Biden.
Who they threw under the bus?
Where's Joe?
Where is
When I
Joe?
think about
He's
the
tucked away in
path
back
that
somewhere.
we have
He's in
traveled
California,
together, Joe, I am
vacationing.
filled with
They brought
gratitude.
him. They had him
Your record is
talk at like 11 o'clock at
extraordinary,
night,
as
and they shipped him
history
out.
will show, and your character is inspiring. And Doug and I love you. And
The
Jill,
moment
and
that
I'm
Joe
forever
did not
thankful
serve their
to you both.
purposes, they threw him under the bus. That's politics. And it's also politics to pretend otherwise, which is what they're doing.
And to
was
Coach Tim
Very Tammany
Walz,
Hall politics. You remember Tammany Hall? They're just dirty and corrupt.
Hmm.
you are going to be an incredible vice president.
Huh.
And to the delegates and everyone who has put your faith in our campaign, your support is humbling. So, America, the path that led me here in recent weeks was no doubt unexpected. But I'm no stranger to unlikely journeys.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go.
My mother, our mother, Kamala Harris, had one of her own.
They're going to try to
And I
check
miss her
every
day, and
box they
especially
can
that.
and pull every heartstring they
And I
can.
know she's looking down, smiling. I know that. So my mother was 19 when she crossed the world alone, traveling from India to California with an unshakable dream to be the scientist who would cure breast cancer.
That's going to
When
get
she
fact checked, I'm
finished
sure.
School, she was supposed to return home to a traditional arranged marriage. But as fate would have it, she met my father, Donald Harris, a student from Jamaica. They fell in love and got married, and that act of self-determination made my sister Maya and me.
Feel free to chime in with your comments along as we listen to this and then react afterwards.
Growing up, we moved a lot. I will always remember that big Mayflower truck packed with all our belongings, ready to go to Illinois, to Wisconsin.
She's going to name all the swing states. Arizona,
and wherever
Michigan.
Our parents' jobs took us. My early memories of our parents together are very joyful ones. A
So,
home
Here we go.
filled with
She's already
laughter
starting the
and
joyful,
music.
the joyful theme.
Aretha,
but
Coltrane,
the first part of this
and
is
Miles.
to humanize her.
At the park,
So voters
my mother
can
would say,
connect with her.
"Stay close."
That's the whole
But
point,
my father would
voters.
say, as he
And let me know
smiled,
if
"Run, Kamala, run.
if
Don't
if
be
it works.
afraid. Don't let anything stop you."
Oh, I'm sure this will play great with white women.
From my earliest years, he taught me to be fearless. But the harmony between my parents did not
She
last. When I
she
was in
sort of
elementary school,
foreshadowed
they split up.
what she's going to talk about
And it
later
was
by
mostly
bringing
my
up the
mother
word
who raised
joyful.
us.
This is a pivot that
Before
they've been
she
trying
could
to make.
finally afford to buy a
So
home,
look for the
she
word
rented a
joy to
small
pop up
apartment
later
in the
multiple
East Bay.
times as they try to push
In
this
the
new
Bay.
joy campaign.
In the Bay, you either live in the hills or the flatlands. We lived in the flats. A beautiful working class neighborhood of firefighters, nurses, and construction workers,
She's going to try and hit all of her demos.
all who tended their lawns with
To me,
pride.
it's crazy because
My mother,
it's
she
so
worked long
transparent,
hours, and like
right?
many working parents,
But
she leaned
everybody
on
in
a
that
trusted
audience is going to
circle
eat it up.
to help
I'm gonna
raise
give her.
us.
I'm just giving her the
Mrs.
benefit
Shelton,
because
who ran the daycare
this is
below
her-
us and became a second mother.
this is her
Uncle
coming
Sherman,
out.
Aunt Mary, Uncle Freddie,
We know who Trump
Auntie
is.
Chris.
We know what we're getting with Trump.
None of
A lot of
them
people don't
family
know who
by
she really
blood,
is unless they've
and
been to a
all of
rally.
them
This is it
family
for her.
by love.
Well,
So she's painting her picture. She's
but here's the
writing it.
truth. The truth is most Americans are not watching this.
family who taught
Yeah, the
us
ratings are
how to
really
make
bad, but I'm sure they'll be
Yeah.
up tonight.
How
So,
to
well,
play
it's almost
chess.
11 o'clock on the East Coast.
and sometimes even
So-
let us
Another
win.
mishap.
Family who loved us
Only the
believed
politicos
in
watch
us
the conventions.
and told
Average
us
Americans,
we
they don't
could
watch this
be
stuff.
anything and do anything. They instilled in us the values they personified: community, faith, and the importance of treating others as you would want to be treated, with kindness,
Is
respect,
kindness and
compassion.
respect evidently doesn't
My mother was a
apply to all the people they keep calling
5 foot
weird?
tall,
All the
brown
name
woman
calling
with
they
an
keep doing
accent.
online, like Walz?
And as the eldest child, I saw how the world would sometimes treat her. But my mother never lost her cool. She was tough, courageous, a trailblazer in the fight for women's health.
Oh.
And she taught Maya and me a lesson that Michelle mentioned the other night. She taught us to never complain about injustice, but do something about it. Do something about it.
Okay, so here's a comment from BMG.
That was
To me,
my
she
mother.
comes across as
And
Insincere.
she taught us, and
Okay.
she
insecure
also-
or insincere.
she also
I'm not
taught
sure
us-
which.
And she also taught us to
Insincere.
never do
Because
anything half-assed.
I had asked that question, you know,
And that is a
is she being
direct
sincere
quote.
to the voters?
Yeah.
Because this is her moment
A direct quote.
to endear herself to us.
I grew up immersed in the ideals of the civil
Then
rights
I want to hear some
movement.
policy,
Mhm.
My
obviously.
parents had met at a civil rights gathering. And
The
they
the
made
left
sure
is
that we
so
learned about
stuck
civil
in the
rights
60s,
leaders,
and you see it
including
right now.
The lawyers,
They're just
like Thurgood
absolutely
Marshall and
trapped in the 60s.
Constance Baker
It's one of the most
Motley,
annoying things about the left.
those who battled in the courtroom to make real
We don't live in the 60s
promise
anymore.
of America. So at a young age, I decided I wanted to do that work. I wanted to be a lawyer. And when it came time to choose the type of law I would pursue, I reflected on a pivotal moment in my life.
And I became a cop.
See, when I was in high school,
I'll say this, from a political standpoint, they don't have a choice.
she
So,
was sad at
you know, you
school,
might as well own up to the fact that
and
you
there
were a
times
prosecutor.
she didn't want to go home.
Because they were going to be attacked for that anyway,
one
so
day
that's what
I
she's
asked
doing.
if
So she's
everything
been
was all
advised to
right.
do that, and it's probably a
And she
smart political
confided
move.
in
Well, and that's
me
why she's
that
been
she was being
hitting the
sexually
border
abused by her
security
stepfather.
hard.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I'm a
And
prosecutor. I
immediately told her
prosecuted
she
drug
had to come
cartels.
stay with us,
I took
and she
out
did.
El Chapo.
Yeah.
This is one of the reasons I became a prosecutor, to protect people like Wanda, because I believe everyone has a right to safety, to dignity, and to justice.
That sounds
Yeah,
like
well,
law-
by the way,
that sounds like Law and Order to me.
well, and she's also incarcerated
As a
innocent people.
prosecutor,
No,
When I
that's
had a
documented.
case,
You can look it
Black
up.
and brown.
I
Black and
charged
brown.
it not in the name of the victim, but in the name of the people. For a simple reason. In our system of justice, a harm against any one of us
Is a harm against
is a
all of us.
harm against all of us.
It's so predictable. Every aspect of this.
And I would often explain this to console survivors of crime, to remind them no one should be made to fight alone. We are all in this together.
I'm
And
not
every day,
much of a collectivist.
in the
I have to like
courtroom,
fight my
I stood
individualistic
proudly
impulses.
before a judge.
But one of
and I
the
said
annoying
5
things to me
words.
also, I think sometimes about the
Kamala
left is this sort of
Harris for the
collectivist
people.
mindset. I
And
do
to be
believe
clear,
communities should work together and we
to
should
be
try to
clear,
look out for
my
each other.
entire career,
But I feel
I've
like the
only
left takes
had
it to an
one
extreme. The
client,
Democrat Party tends
the
to take it to an
people.
extreme. And then they use it to justify horrible policies.
And
Well, it's become a
so,
Hollywood script.
on
It's not.
behalf
It's not authentic.
of the
You know,
people,
like you just
on
don't believe it.
behalf of every American, regardless of party, race, gender, or the language your grandmother speaks, on behalf of my mother and everyone who has ever set out on their own unlikely journey, on behalf
To becoming a
of
lifelong
Americans
bureaucrat
like the
and
people I
prosecutor.
grew up with, people who work hard, chase their dreams, and look out for one another, on behalf of everyone whose story
Here's the problem that I have with this. Because I agree that we should look out for everyone, but the way that the Democrat Party means that when they say that is they mean
your
government.
nomination to be president of the United States of America.
That's it. That can't be it.
No, that's not it.
Come on.
It's not it. She just said that she accepts the nomination.
Okay.
And
All
with
right.
this election,
Newsom's the real loser because he had planned to run in 4 years. And
with
now
this
that's probably not going to
election,
happen.
our nation with this election has a precious, fleeting opportunity to move past the bitterness, cynicism, and divisive
So here we're
battles
going to
of
the joy theme.
past, a chance to chart a new way forward.
It reminds me of The Great Leap Forward by
Not
Chairman
as
Mao.
members of any one party or faction, but as Americans. And let me say, I know there are people of various political views watching tonight. And
Yep.
I want you to know, I promise to be a president for all Americans. You can
They all say that.
trust me.
Yeah, well, she has to say that. Nobody's going to go up there and say that they're only going to support half the country.
America's fundamental principles, from the rule of law to free and
Very
fair
underwhelming speech so
elections,
far from a
to the
political standpoint.
peaceful transfer of power.
This is why they had Obama and everybody else speak days ago, because they would have overshadowed her. Because she's not that great of a speaker, and this is not that great of a speech, at least not so far.
So far.
Around our highest aspirations, a president who leads and listens, who is realistic, practical, and has common sense, and always fights
Common sense
the
as
American
in price controls?
from the courthouse to the White House. That has been my life's work. As a young courtroom prosecutor in Oakland, California, I stood up for women and children against predators who abuse them. As Attorney General of California, I took on the big banks.
That's low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, it is.
Delivered $20
Low-hanging fruit.
billion
Everybody in that crowd
to
wants to hear
middle-class
that.
families
So
who
they're
face
going to throw out that red
foreclosure
meat. They're
and
going to say they
helped
went
pass
after the big
a
banks.
Homeowner Bill of Rights, one of the first of its kind in the nation.
So far, there's nothing too special.
I stood up for veterans.
I'm actually
and
surprised.
students being scammed by big for-profit colleges. For workers who are being cheated out of their wages, the wages they were due. For seniors facing elder abuse. I fought against
Like
the
Joe Biden
cartels who
and the
traffic
elder
in
abuse that
guns
he
and drugs
dealt with
and
from the
human
Democrat
beings,
Party after getting kicked out of
who
office.
threaten the security of our border and the safety of our communities. And I will tell you, these fights were not easy. And neither were the elections that put me in those offices. We were underestimated at practically every turn. But we never gave up because the future is always worth fighting for.
Okay, so far,
That's the fight we are in right
I'm
now.
I'm really surprised that it's not better.
Future.
I think that she's going to get to something at some point, but right now, this is all just generic stuff.
It's all
Fellow
fluff.
Americans,
Yeah, it's all just
this
generic fluff.
election
You know,
is
even
not
her story, even her
the
story
most
was fluff. Like,
important
there wasn't
of
like a
our
nugget of
lives.
like, hey, there's this
It
one
is
hardship
one
I
of
had
the most
growing up.
important
Like,
in the life
or,
of
you
our
know,
nation.
the only thing was like, I had to make a decision. Do I want to be a cop or do I want to be a social
In
justice
many ways,
activist? Whatever.
Donald Trump is an unserious man.
Here we go.
Oh, all right.
They
But
they can't do anything without
consequences-
Trump. They need
Right.
Trump.
The consequences of putting Donald Trump back in the White House are extremely serious.
Ugh.
We went from joy and hope in the future.
Consider not only the
Evidently, my
chaos
other
and
camera went out.
calamity
One of your
when he
cameras
was
went out, but
in
we
I
can
guess
see
so.
office, but
but we can see the
also
juice you're drinking,
the
so that's good.
gravity
Yeah.
of what has happened since he lost the last election. Donald Trump tried to throw away your votes. When he failed, he sent an armed mob to the United States Capitol, where they assaulted law enforcement officers. When politicians in his own party begged him to call off the mob and
So
send
this
help,
right here is
he
gonna
did
hurt.
the opposite.
This is not going to
He
help
fanned
This
the
is just-
flames.
because she just called
And now,
a bunch of people, you
for
know,
an
a mob, and they're probably
entirely
not going to like
different
that.
set of
Terrorists,
People-
crimes,
yeah.
he was
insurrectionists.
found
Yep.
guilty
She
of
should have moved
fraud
to a
by
more
jury of
uniting
everyday
way of talking.
Americans,
Armed mob.
and separately
So that's gonna hurt her.
found liable for committing sexual abuse. And consider what he intends to do if we give him power again. Consider his explicit intent to set free violent extremists who assaulted those law enforcement officers at the Capitol. His explicit intent to jail journalists, political opponents, and anyone he sees as the enemy.
Isn't that what you guys have done? We're trying to do with Taibbi and
to
other
deploy
journalists.
our active duty military against our own.
My question is this: how long do you go back to this trough?
But this is your speech?
He will have
This
like-
is your coming out speech.
after the
The
United
entire
States Supreme Court
identity of
just
the
ruled that
Democrat
he would be
Party
immune
revolves
from
around
criminal
Trump.
prosecution.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Just imagine Donald Trump with no guardrails, and how he would use the immense powers of the presidency of the United States, not to improve your life, not to strengthen our national security, but to serve the only client he has ever had, himself.
This is not going to do it for her.
Well, this is what
We know.
what we've been waiting
we
for.
know
I mean,
what a
even the
second
crowd doesn't
Trump
look that
term
jazzed
would
up.
look
I feel like they're
It's
kind
all
of
laid out
like,
in front of him,
is this the speech?
2025, Written by his closest advisors.
I'm going to try and fix
I mean,
my camera
she's
while I'm waiting.
still-
Sum
still
total
on
is
Trump.
to pull our country back to the
She's
past.
still on Trump, guys.
But America, we are not going back.
And that's her
We are not
catchphrase.
going back. We are not going back. We are not going back. to when Donald Trump tried to cut Social Security and Medicare. We are not going back to when he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, when insurance companies could deny people with pre-existing conditions. We are not going to let him eliminate the Department of Education that funds our public schools.
Because they're so well run.
We are not going to let him end programs like Head Start that provide preschool and childcare for our children. America, we are not going back. And we are charting a new way forward to a future with a strong and growing middle class, because we know a strong
this
middle
is
class
not
has
an impressive
always
speech.
been critical to America's success, and building that middle class will be a defining goal of my presidency. And I'll tell you, this is personal for me. The middle class is where I come from. My mother kept a strict budget. We lived within our means, yet we wanted for little. And she expected us to make the most of the opportunities that were available to us and to be grateful for them. Because as she taught us, opportunity is not available to everyone. That's why we will create what I call an opportunity economy, where everyone
Here's the problem with
has
this.
the
I mean,
chance to
the
compete
economy
and a
is already
chance
full of
to
opportunity.
succeed.
There's plenty of opportunity out there. So what does she mean when she says opportunity economy? Does it mean she's going to meddle in the economy? That's most likely what it's going to mean, being she supports things like price controls.
Well, we don't know because she hasn't put any official policies on her website as of today. Still.
And American companies to create jobs, to grow our economy, and to lower the cost of everyday needs.
One of
like
the
healthcare
biggest
and
misnomers of
housing
a
and
president
groceries.
is that they can
We will
grow jobs.
provide
It's not the
access to
president, it's
capital
the
for small
policies.
business owners
So I
and
guess if she
entrepreneurs
can
and
remove a lot of
founders.
red tape, she could
And
probably
we will
create
end
a lot of jobs.
America's housing shortage
But that's
Sounds
generally
like
not
tax cuts and not
protect
taxes.
Social Security and Medicare.
And how about some tariffs on some
Now compare
exporting
that
countries?
to Donald
The other
Trump,
thing is, I
because
love the
I think
idea of
everyone
building
here
houses,
knows he doesn't
but that happens on a
actually
local
fight
level. Like
for
the
the
federal
middle
government
class.
doesn't go
He
in and
doesn't
build
actually
houses.
fight for the middle class.
So it's got to be
Instead,
on a
he
Well,
county
fights
she's
for
level,
himself and his
influencing.
a
billionaire
city level.
friends.
Yeah.
They
And
can
he will give
threaten
them
states
another
with
round
pulling
of
the
tax
purse
breaks
strings and say,
that
hey, we're not
will
going to fund this
add
highway if you don't build more
up to
houses, things like
$5
that.
trillion
But you got to work with
to the national
contractors and all
debt.
that stuff.
And all the while, he
but
intends
most
to
voters don't
enact
think
what
about
in
this.
effect is a national sales tax, call it a Trump tax, that would raise prices on middle-class families by almost $4,000 a year. Well, instead of a Trump tax hike, we will pass a middle-class tax cut that will benefit more than 100 million Americans.
What they're doing is they're kind of appropriating a lot of things that are happening that the Republican Party stands for.
Just exactly. What did I just say? I just said tax cut.
So it's kind of funny because I don't think anybody actually believes that Democrats are for cutting taxes.
Able to make their
and so,
own
you know,
decisions
but again,
about their own lives, especially on matters of heart and
you know, when
home.
you look at Walz when he was in Minnesota, they actually had a surplus till he came
But
into
tonight,
office, and then he spent them into
in
oblivion.
America, too many women are not able to make those decisions.
Oh, here we go.
And let's be clear about how we got here. Donald Trump handpicked members of the United States Supreme Court to take away reproductive freedom. And now he brags about it.
The only thing I don't understand about this argument is that
and I'm proud to have done it.
all the Supreme Court did was hand it back to the states.
I'll tell you,
The Supreme Court didn't ban anything.
I've traveled across our country, and women have told me their stories. Husbands and fathers have shared theirs. Stories of women miscarrying in a parking lot, developing sepsis, losing the ability to ever again have children.
So this whole chunk of the speech, all this is going to do is you're going to keep the supporters you already have. My question is, are you growing new supporters? So when I look at this speech so far, over the first almost a half hour now, what I see is her keeping her base, but I don't see her expanding her base. And that's a problem. Like, if you're going to go out onto this platform and you're running for president, you should be using this to try to expand your base.
She should at very least be speaking to the independents.
And understand
the ones that can swing it for her. She's speaking to her hardcore base right now. That's all.
He and his
this feels like
would limit access to birth control.
It feels more like a speech that you would give if you've already been in office for 2 years.
Nationwide abortion ban with or without Congress. And get this, he plans to create a national
like the whole, I go back to what I was saying, the entire identity of the Democrat Party revolves around Trump.
Women's miscarriages and abortions. Simply put,
so we have another comment here from BMG. Kamala Harris still hasn't done an unscripted press interview. That's true. She has not. It's been, almost 2 months or something like that. She still has not sat down for an interview. She still doesn't have any policies on her website. Everything is feel-good cat memes.
Why exactly is it
that
they don't trust
They want to avoid that as much as possible.
Well, of course.
We trust
we know what happens when she goes off script, and we can talk a little bit about that after the speech.
And when Congress passes a bill to restore reproductive freedom, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law.
I wonder if they're still going to have the surprise guest. And I wonder if she's going to like introduce that person right after she talks.
That'll be right on par with her rallies.
Yeah.
From gun
So,
violence in our schools,
let's pretend it's somebody like Taylor Swift. And then she gets to introduce Taylor Swift. Then everybody leaves with this really good, good feeling.
The freedom
so it would actually be pretty smart. And then they'd forget that the speech is largely,
clean water and live
didn't have a lot of substance.
From the pollution that fuels the climate crisis.
Beyonce's team said that she was not performing for those asking in the comments. But who knows? Maybe they're lying.
Freedom to vote. With this election, we finally have the opportunity to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the Freedom to Vote Act. And let me be clear. After decades in law enforcement, I know the importance of safety and security, especially at our border. Last year, Joe
here we go.
Sorry, I was
Democrats
laughing.
and conservative Republicans to write the strongest border bill in decades. The Border Patrol endorsed it. But Donald Trump believes a border deal would hurt his campaign.
Nope, that's not true.
So he ordered his allies in Congress to kill the deal.
Why?
Because
it had money to Ukraine connected to it. That's why.
And
this is one of those myths that continues to persist.
I will bring back the bipartisan border security bill that he killed, and I will sign it into law. I know we can live up to our proud heritage as a nation of immigrants and reform our broken immigration system.
No. If you did, you would have done it by now.
Create an earned pathway.
It's been fascinating to watch the Democrat Party flip on so many issues rhetorically. In their rhetoric.
And America, we must also be steadfast in advancing our security and values abroad. As Vice President, I have confronted threats to our security, negotiated with foreign leaders, strengthened our alliances, and engaged with our brave.
I want to hear where
Kamala.
I'm really curious where she's going with this.
Commander in Commander-in-Chief, I will ensure America always has the strongest, most lethal fighting force in the world. And I will fulfill our sacred obligation to care for our troops and their families, and I will always honor and never disparage their service and their sacrifice. I will make sure that we lead the world into the future on space and artificial intelligence, that America, not China, wins the competition.
I'll give her credit for this, even though I don't believe any of it. They're really trying to harken back to this like Kennedy-esque 60s space exploration.
On the other hand,
because no presidents really talk about this anymore.
He encouraged Putin to invade our allies, said Russia could, quote, do whatever the hell they want.
It's been fascinating to watch the Democrat Party become such an interventionist party over the past 10 years. It used to be that they were the anti-war party, and this is flipped. Now the Republicans are the anti-war party.
Against Putin's aggression.
Well, Trump is.
Well, Trump is.
Trump specifically.
There's a fair amount of the right that is very isolationist at this point, non-interventionist. They want to spend money at home domestically and rather than abroad.
Yep.
And the Democrat Party, is really behind Ukraine and a few other places.
With respect to the war in Gaza, President Biden and I are working around the clock because now is the time.
That's another lie. He's asleep.
And a ceasefire deal done.
Says every president who's ever come into office.
And let me be clear. I will always stand up for Israel's right to defend itself.
Ooh.
And I will always ensure Israel has the ability to defend itself.
But she sounds like a Republican, man.
Hey,
never again.
She ran right into that one.
That a terrorist organization called Hamas
caused
on October 7.
Wow.
Including unspeakable sexual violence and the massacre of young people at a music festival.
Wow, I give her credit for this.
At the same time, what has happened in Gaza over the past 10 months?
She's going to try and play it both ways now.
So many
It'll be very hard.
innocent lives lost.
She'll probably waffle it back next couple of weeks.
People fleeing for safety over and over.
Well, I'll tell you this. She's going to lose
of suffering is
a faction of the left with some of her talk with Israel.
They're
all out there protesting that right now at the DC.
But you want to know what she's really doing, though? She is trying to alleviate concerns that leaders might have
and the
under things like that.
The liberal Jewish,
their right to dignity, security, freedom, and self-determination.
It is I don't remember the acronym. But I'll be really curious to hear some of the...
I will never hesitate to take whatever action is necessary to defend our forces and our interests against Iran and Iran-backed terrorists. I will not cozy up to tyrants and dictators like Kim Jong-un who are rooting for Trump.
I'll say this. So I think this is really strong. I think this is really strong of her and smart of her. And I actually believe it.
He is easy to manipulate.
I do believe it.
I agree.
Because she used to be a prosecutor, so I think she's got that side to her.
But that's what I'm saying, is that she's a hard ass.
He wants to be an autocrat himself. And as president, I will never waver in defense of America's security and ideals, because in the enduring struggle between democracy and tyranny, I know where I stand, and I know where the United States belongs.
She's on fire, man.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, she's on fire. I did not see this coming.
Yeah, I thought this was good. This is good.
This is really good.
So fellow Americans.
All right, bring it on home. Bring it on home.
I love our country with all my heart. Everywhere I go, in everyone I meet, I see a nation that is ready to move forward, ready for the next step in the incredible journey that is America. I see an America where we hold fast to the fearless belief that built our nation and inspired the world, that here in this country, anything is possible, that nothing is out of reach. An America where we care for one another, look out for one another, and recognize that we have so much more in common than what separates us. That none of us has to fail for all of us to succeed. And that in unity there is strength. You know, our opponents in this race are out there every day denigrating America, talking about how terrible everything is. Well, my mother had another lesson she used to teach. Never let anyone tell you who you are. You show them who you are.
I think this last part of the speech, she's done really good over the past 15 minutes, 10 minutes.
And the world who we are and what we stand for. Freedom, opportunity, compassion, dignity, fairness, and endless possibilities. We are the heirs to the greatest democracy in the history of the world. And on behalf of our children and our grandchildren and all
so much to think about after this.
So dearly for our freedom and liberty, we must be worthy of this moment. It is now our turn to do what generations before us have done, guided by optimism and faith, to fight for this country we love, to fight for the ideals we cherish, and to uphold the awesome responsibility.
You know, I think that this speech, if she had left out the part where she was attacking Trump,
on earth,
it would be a great speech.
Privilege and pride of being an American.
When she talks like that, I believe it.
Yeah,
I believe
it's amazing that
to
the second part of the speech, or the last 15 minutes, like you said, is so different than the first half hour.
Let's fight for
well, this is clearly,
let's get out there. Let's
you know, the objective here is to take
and together
that narrative away from the Republican Party and away from Trump. Because frankly, Trump and the Republican Party have owned it over the past 8 years, right? If you're pro-America or if you fly the flag, you're a Republican. You're Trump.
God bless the United States.
They're taking that back.
Of America.
And I don't see Trump fighting for it. And so, and frankly, if we're being honest, everybody's entitled to be proud to live in this country. So why should Democrats concede that territory? Okay, so that was Kamala. That was her speech. She wraps up. Let me know what you think in the comments. The speech ran roughly 40 minutes. She started 15 minutes early. I was surprised. I still haven't seen anything about this surprise guest they were supposed to have. So we're going to bring that down.
Yeah.
Paulie, what do you think?
Yeah, really fast. Towards the end, she talked about freedom, opportunity, compassion, fairness, endless possibilities, and being the heirs to the greatest democracy. That was a nice way to end it. And obviously, her going after the foreign leaders, her putting on her prosecutor cap, that was really strong because that's who she is. That's who she is. And
Well, I think
reminds me,
she's more that than the Democrat Party. Some of Democrats realize. I think they're going to see that.
right? Which again, it's like so okay. So there's that foreign leaders. Gosh, you threw me off.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. It's all right. I think those were her strongest moments. She still failed to give any substantial policy, especially the first half hour was really just was pretty flat. We were kind of like in disbelief that this is the speech, and then she turned a corner and put a prosecutor cap on. So yeah.
Who would have thought that actually the better side of her was when she started getting tough? And, I think this is a tale of two speeches. The first speech was incredibly generic, boring, predictable, flat, like you said. And then once she got to Trump, that seemed to be a transition point. She went after Trump, which, I thought was bad. I didn't think that was good to bring on new voters. And then she used that to transition and talk about how she's pro-America and how she'll represent America on the international stage and how she won't, bow down to our adversaries. And I think this is really where she came across as strong. And I think that she probably alleviated some doubts with some moderates who are concerned about her ability to be strong. To me, she's probably the stronger one between her and Walz.
I don't care about Walz at all. But will this speech? This is for the first time I'm registered independent in my voting life. Will this speech bring in the independents?
I don't know if it will or not. I think there might be some people on the fence who were impressed by the pro-America, I'll be strong. I can also stand up to adversaries. It doesn't have to be Trump. I can be crazy too. I can be firm too. Don't mess with me. That might have some appeal to some people who are on the fence. Do I think it'll move the needle enough in the swing state she needs to win? Possibly in Pennsylvania. I don't think it will in Arizona. But if she wins Pennsylvania, she doesn't need to win Arizona.
I mean, so far, right? Her campaign has run. Her people have run an incredible, tight campaign. It's very, very disciplined, which is good and bad. When is she going to take, do a real one-on-one? When is she going to do some real interviews? And then, of course, the debate. I think a lot of people I think independents were like tonight. Okay, I'm hearing you, Kamala. Kinda, they're going to be curious about what I just said. Interviews, one-on-one, hard interviews, and policies, and then the debate. I also believe that what we're going to hear about potentially tomorrow with Trump is going to be also a turning point as well, because that's one thing that has happened, which is crazy, is that this all these radical changes from Biden, from that Biden debate to the Biden jumping, deciding to opt out and not run, and then Kamala. I mean, definitely Trump needs to shake it up. But all that being said, it's still anyone's race, man. It's still, depending on what polls you follow, he's still in the lead.
One of the criticisms that Obama used to get was that he always used a teleprompter. Now, when he went off script, he was still pretty good, but he was long-winded and professorial. But nobody ever doubted that he was an idiot, right? Or intelligent, right? Nobody really thought of him as an idiot. They just thought he was long-winded and professorial, which he kind of was. And so he was great on script. Now, Kamala's kind of the same way. She seems not as good as Obama, but she's decent on a teleprompter, as decent as you need to be as a politician. But she's terrible off script. I mean, she is not good at all off script, except unlike Obama and some of these other politicians, she is not very detail-oriented or professorial. She comes across as somebody who really doesn't know what they're talking about. And so she tends to have these kind of word salads. So I'm going to play a video right here. And this is Kamala, just about a week ago. She hasn't given any sit-down media interviews, but she was flagged down by somebody at CNN after she gave her economic proposal. And they just asked her a simple question really quick. And this was her explanation. This is Kamala after or outside of a teleprompter.
You unveiled some economic policies last week.
Yeah.
Can you explain how you're going to pay for those? And can you give us a sense of what other policies you want to unveil going forward?
Sure. Well, I mean, you just look at it in terms of what we are talking about, for example, around children and the child tax credit and extending the EITC. It's at $6,000 for the first year of a child's life. The return on that investment in terms of what that will do and what it will pay for will be tremendous. We've seen it when we did it in the first year of our administration. We reduced child poverty by over 50%. So that's a lot of the work. And then what we're doing in terms of the tax credits, we know that there's a great return on that investment. And when we increase home ownership in America, what that means in terms of increasing the tax base, not to mention property tax base, what that does to fund schools, again, return on investment. I think it's a mistake for any person who talks about public policy to not critically evaluate how you measure the return on investment. When you are strengthening neighborhoods, strengthening communities, and in particular the economy of those communities, and investing in a broad-based economy, everybody benefits, and it pays for itself.
Okay, so that's her when she goes off script and starts talking about her own policies. I have no idea what she was trying to say.
I don't know what she said. All I got was invest in broad-based economies.
Yeah, and the other thing that's funny about that is she keeps talking about return on investment, but she can't explain how she plans to fund it. How do you know that you're going to get a return on investment if you don't even know how you're going to pay for it? So anyways, that's just her off script. And so they've tried really hard to keep her away from the media for that reason, because most of her answers to questions end up like that. There's these sort of like weird word salads. You know, she comes across as Timothy Leary at times, where she's just speaking in platitudes and you have no clue what she's saying. And so she's good on teleprompter. The reason I bring this up is she's going to get about a 10-day bounce from this convention. And that should be the last of sort of the bounces that she's gotten just because of the schedule, right? So when she came into the race, she got a great bounce just coming into the race, because everybody's like, oh, you know, we're rejuvenated. It's not Biden that's running. Now we have Kamala. We're so excited. So she got all this great press. And then some weeks go by. Then she got to name her VP pick. So then again, the media was like, oh, this is great. She picked Walz, da-da-da-da. She got a bunch of good press. And then again, she had the convention right after that. So she's going to get more good press again. So very good timing for Kamala this past 2 months. Horrible for Trump. However, this will fade in about 10 days. We're going to get into September, get about a week in, and then September and October, the rubber will meet the road a little bit more. She'll have to engage in a debate. She'll be pressured to sit down, actually speak off script. She'll get caught here and there. I don't think they're going to continue to try to write it out to where she just completely avoids the media until November. They might, but I have a hard time believing it. I think some of this will fade and the numbers will even out again, especially in today's world where our attention spans are like that long. These good feelings, the cat memes, the feeling good, all this stuff, it's going to go away. And eventually people will return to who they think is more qualified, who they trust on the international stage, domestically, and different voters will come to different conclusions. But that's what's going to happen. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think what this does, it seals the death of democracy in the Democratic Party. She didn't have to primary against anyone. She didn't have to go against anyone in her own party. They made sure of it. They got rid of RFK Jr. Because of something that could happen. Because in all honesty, if he was still part of this process, he would have been it. It's a complete sham. Yeah, she had a nice speech, very strong, good performance, but it doesn't negate. And as a lifelong Democrat, it's completely shameful what the DNC and those leaders have done this past, I'd say, 2 years. Also, too, who's running the country right now?
Yeah,
so I suggest to all our listeners, to all our supporters, just go and get informed. Think for yourself. I don't think the 10-day bounce is going to be that long. I'm very curious as to what's going to happen tomorrow with Trump and RFK Jr. I think that could be a brilliant move, and
I don't think. I think the media, because of how much they already love Kamala and don't like Trump, I think the media is absolutely not going to pass up the opportunity to write about this speech in place of covering.
Oh yeah, sure.
So, and the other thing is, I don't understand why they do these announcements on Fridays. Friday is the absolute worst time to announce anything. And you know why? That's why when the White House does information dumps on things they don't want people to know about, they do it on Fridays. Because everybody's off for the weekend, everybody's doing their own thing, everybody's thinking about whatever's coming next, when they get off work. So it's not a good time. They should be doing it on a Monday, so it carries across the whole week. People talk about it at the office.
Well, I think okay, so normally, yeah, I agree with you, but Friday, this is the day after the DNC, brilliant play. Also, too, there's been a planned rally in Arizona, and that's a brilliant play as well. So, I mean, they're going to get
some of the coverage. It might. I think that you're being more optimistic than I am about the media as bias. And so I think any other candidates or any other decade in politics, it would be a brilliant play because it would refocus the media.
Well, I like I told you, the media is already covering the fact that RFK is going to drop out. They haven't been covering him at all for months now.
Well, right.
So the fact that they're already doing that all day long, Washington, Wall Street Journal, all these other ones are signaling that he's going to drop out, and and he has signaled that there's a big announcement tomorrow. So tomorrow, everyone's going to be talking about. Right now, everyone's talking about her speech. She's going to get lauded, blah 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 blah, and then we'll see how Trump and the Republicans, counterpunch.
Yeah, well, I mean, probably Trump's going to come out and swing when he gives his press conference, and he also has this habit of speaking in platitudes, just more confrontational platitudes, and. RFK, look, he might move the needle if they get 2% more of the vote. That could be a huge difference. That could be a difference maker.
Well, right. I mean, do we want to talk about that right now, or do we want to wrap up on this on the DNC, or you want to how about what some of the chat is saying?
Yeah. Let's see here.
Whatever you want to do, man.
No, yeah. Let's take a look and see some of the comments here.
What's still going on over here?
All right. Yeah. Professor R2, the same people who have been running the country for years, White House interns.
Oh, who's running the country right now? Right.
BMJ, I think it'll be a 3-day bounce. Nah, it won't be that. It'll be longer than that. Because it's too insatiable. The journalists, they can't resist themselves. So they're going to have to write about it. There's going to be think pieces and all types of things. Dan Crane, she's a Marxist. That will never change. Okay, let's see what else we got. Dun. Jalissa, who's been on some of our other podcasts. I don't trust either candidate.
There you go.
All right. So I don't see too many comments here that are okay. Does Brandon think Prince would have performed at the DNC if he was alive? I don't think so. They got Chela and John Legend and Stevie Wonder, Lil Jon, and they played Prince riff for Minnesota. That's an interesting question. I have no idea if Prince would have, but I think Prince was largely apolitical as far as I know. So I think he would play for whoever asked him to play because he just loves music. That's my feeling about Prince. And I actually think because so many people like Prince, I don't think Republicans would get upset at him for playing the DNC. And probably, maybe some Democrats get mad if he played the GOP convention. But yeah.
I'm just... yeah. I mean, listen, the left has all the celebrities. I mean, that's no surprise. That doesn't really matter to me at the end of the day. I don't know. I think it was a bad trend started by Elvis and Nixon, where celebrities started mixing with the White House. No.
Yeah, well, it was certainly where it became more visible. Where it was like these photo ops could be used for political purposes.
Yeah, exactly.
I think there's always been some mixture just because you have power and money and influence. But that was definitely where that photo op, the power of that photo op. So now you're seeing it all the time. But I have to question if whether or not that type of thing will come back on Democrats as well, because that's kind of been a longstanding Democrat or stereotype with Democrats, which is that they're so tied into Hollywood. They're tied into all these sort of elitists. Mm-hmm. And so here they are again with a bunch of, big actors, big musicians, things like that. And in fairness, the Republican Party did it too. But the Republican Party doesn't carry that stigma like the Democrat Party does. Like the Democrat Party right now is trying to posture itself as a working class party again. And they're trying to make that transition. And you see that with a lot of their rhetoric. So my question is, can you have it both ways? Can you say you're the party of the working class and put forward these kind of working class vibes, and you came from nothing and you're really meek and meager, and at the same time you have all these famous people all the time who you're rubbing shoulders with? The other thing is, and I'll show you right now, is the cost that it was to even attend the DNC, the convention. So I have the numbers right here on what people paid to sit in the rafters at the Democrat National Convention. And I'll be curious to hear your thoughts on these numbers. Oops, that's not it. All right. So how much did it cost? This is Politico. Penthouse suite, $500,000. $500,000. Club level suite, $1 million to $1.5 million. Lower level suite, $2.5 million. 2 lower level suites, $5 million. So there you go. That is the party of the working class, and that is how much it costs to hang out with the working class. You need somewhere between $500,000 and $5 million, or you are in the basement with the peons.
Amazing, bro. Amazing.
Yeah, that's a lot. It's expensive. I mean, almost as much as Lakers tickets.
It's disgusting. It's disgusting. And, but just so you know, that's the Democratic Party. I'm sure it's expensive at the RNC. We don't have those numbers, but
there's a difference in their rhetoric.
Right. That's what I was going to say. Like what Brandon was saying is that when they lament, that they're for the working class people and want to. Yeah, also too, she talked about this middle class. Mm-hmm. It's really funny because the policies of the Democrats have really killed the middle class these last several years. I mean, I'm just kind of blown away. I mean, even today in California, this bill's passed in regards to undocumented illegal aliens being able to buy houses. So, I mean, these are not. This is a different Democratic Party nowadays. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. No.
That's all I'm saying.
All right. So that stream has ended.
Okay.
All right. So that is done. They are done at the Democrat National Convention. Now, one thing she didn't expand on, which I expected her to expand on a bit, would be her proposals, like specifics to her proposals. Earlier in the week or last week, she spoke about price controls with groceries. And so I thought that was really interesting. That drew some pushback. And I have the margins here on groceries, by the way, so we understand what we're talking about when we talk about groceries. So the margins for groceries is about 1.2%. That's the average. And so think about what that's going to do if you're going to try and create price controls and create a ceiling on what those grocery markets can charge. Now, we've done this in the past. We tried it in the 70s. It led to shortages. There's a whole bunch of reasons why this happens. But I think the pushback she received for talking about price controls was well-deserved, because price controls have a long history of not working out. In fact, I talked this a couple days ago. The World Bank, among others, have said that price controls don't work. So it'll be interesting to see if she backtracks on that, because she didn't expand on it. She didn't even mention it that I remember.
I just read a headline from the Post Millennial saying that when Kamala accepted what's the wording? Accepts the Democratic nomination on behalf of the people, she received 0 votes.
Oh. Yeah. So, all right, I want to pivot a little bit. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on some issues in relation to Walz, who is Kamala's vice presidential pick. So Walz, in the past 2 weeks, has been caught lying about multiple issues.
Right.
Now, the first issue that he lied about was carrying certain weapons in war. He gave a speech in which he talked about carrying these weapons. Somebody found an old video of him saying those things. Turned out not to be true. And so the Kamala campaign released a statement saying, quote, Walz misspoke in 2018 on weapons of war. All right. So Walz misspoke.
Mm-hmm.
And let me see if I have this video, and I want to hear your thoughts, Paulie, on whether or not this classifies as somebody misspeaking. So here's Walz talking about war, the weapons he carried in war.
Hope woke up like many of you did 5 weeks ago and said, Dad, you're the only person I know who's in elected office. You need to stop what's happening with this. I'll take my kick in the butt for the NRA. I spent 25 years in the Army and I hunt. And I gave the money back, and I'll tell you what I have been doing. I've been voting for common sense legislation that protects the Second Amendment, but we can do background checks. We can do CDC research. We can make sure we don't have reciprocal carry among states, and we can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons are at.
Okay, so that was him. And then somebody said, hey, what weapons did you carry in war? Turned out he didn't. And then he said he misspoke.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, did he misspeak or did he lie?
Oh, that's a lie.
All right. So Paulie ranks that as a lie, not misspeaking. Okay, so let's go to the next one. That wasn't the only one.
But I also want to be clear too. I mean, Trump is good at lying as well. So
we're going to get to that.
We're going
to talk about that.
All right. I don't want. I'm not trying to like.
Look. Well, we're not talking about Trump.
Okay.
We're
no, you're right.
About Walz.
You're right. All right. Let me put my glasses on.
Okay. So next, Walz said that. Well, let me play you the video.
All right. Play me the video.
Now, this is Walz talking about him and his wife getting IVF treatment.
Today's IVF day. Thank God for IVF. My wife and I have 2 beautiful children. He thinks he needs to dictate that. And I've been saying this, the golden rule that makes small towns work so we're not at each other's throats all the time in a little town is mind your own damn business. I don't.
Okay. Now, from hearing that, do you believe that Walz implied that him and his wife used IVF?
Yes.
Okay. Now here's another video.
Some of you might have heard this. This is very personal for my wife and I. When Gwen and I decided to have children, we went through years of fertility treatments. And I remember each night praying that the call was going to come and it was going to be good news. The phone would ring, tenseness in my stomach, and then the agony when you heard the treatments hadn't worked.
Okay. Now, do you believe that he implied again that they engaged in fertility treatment, IVF?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I know someone that went through the same thing as well, and she finally had a successful, it took, so to speak.
Okay. Well, it turned out he also lied about that. His wife had to come out and said they did not do IVF. They did a different treatment. So there's that. I don't know if that's fair or not. Do you think he was purposely misleading people? Do you think he misspoke, or do you think he lied?
Well, that's both, right? Because he lied and he was misleading people.
Well, can you lie by
misspeaking? Is like, it's like, oh, my wife hates apple pie, but really loves cherry pie. And then like, no, honey, I really like cherry pie. Oh, I misspoke.
Right. Well, so there is such a thing.
I mean, yeah. I mean, what the hell is that, man?
There is such a thing as lying by omission. So,
Okay.
I think politicians are masters of that. I feel like, he has a history here of stretching the truth. There was the DUI as well. I don't have a video of that part because that happened in the 90s. But what happened with this DUI. He got pulled over for drunk driving. He was going like 70, 80, something like that in a 50. And then he stumbled. He couldn't stand straight and then blamed it on being deaf. He said he was deaf. That's why he couldn't stand up straight. But really, he was drunk. That turned out not to be true. So
that turned out not to be true, that he wasn't drunk?
No, he was drunk.
Oh, okay.
Now, I don't know whether or not he's partially deaf or not. I have no idea. He
Did
said
he
he's
say
partially
he was
deaf.
partially deaf while he was drunk trying to pass the test, or after the fact?
Yeah, he said his balance was thrown off because he was deaf. So he couldn't hear the officer giving him directions, and that it threw off his equilibrium and all this stuff. So that was his excuse.
Okay, I'm confused. All right. Either way, he was drunk driving, right?
He was drunk driving.
Yeah.
Correct.
I mean,
so
did he pay the price? Did he?
Well, yeah, he got a DUI. But when you go back and look at the paperwork, he tried to blame it on being deaf.
Oh, come on, man.
So
I mean, then okay, if that's the case, if he was deaf, were they successful with that?
No, it wasn't successful. That's the funny part.
That's the funny part, because
you can go back and read it in the police report and all of that. But yeah, no, it didn't. He still got his DUI.
And I don't know anything about serving, whether it's National Guard or other militaries. But do they take people who have hearing problems?
No, he said his hearing problem came from being in the war.
What?
That was
Come
what.
on.
So.
Come on.
Yeah. So I felt like it was a stretch too. I'm not even mad at the guy for getting a DUI. I'm just saying.
Right.
I feel like you were stretching it a little bit. I don't know if you're partially deaf or not, but that's definitely a unique excuse when you're having trouble passing a sobriety test and you blame your failure on being deaf.
Okay. Well, he wasn't ever in war.
Well, and there's that too. Yeah, he was.
That's huge, man. That's huge, because you don't fib, stretch the truth about that at all. I mean, JD Vance has always been upfront about his enlistment as a Marine, and he was a what's the word I was looking for? Like a journalist.
He was a
Marine,
journalist,
correct?
Something like that.
Right. So he was in combat zones. I mean, they get information by being in the combat zones, but he's never embellished his record,
I've heard that he embellished some of his upbringing in the Appalachians. I don't know if I've heard that maybe he exaggerated how long he was there. The LA Times, in fact, had a piece about it. To me, if you're nitpicking though on those little things,
right,
you're losing the battle.
So
there's so much you can nitpick about that type of thing.
right. But going back to Walz and seeing him speak in front of that crowd, he was speaking so fast that I'm like, I don't like this guy. Like it tuned me off. It just turned me off. You know, we're gonna do this. I gave the money back and I served. I'm like, dude.
He sounds like a part auctioneer, part car salesman. There's just something about Walz that doesn't sit right with me. You know, the Democrat Party has sort of brought him forward and pitched him as this typical Midwestern American guy that anybody can relate to. He hunts, he has his family, all these Midwestern values.
Yeah.
When you really get below that kind of surface look at him, you're talking about a guy who's been in government for 20 years. You're talking about a guy who set up a COVID hotline in 2020, so neighbors can report each other to the government. He talks this big game about government staying out of my business. It's none of my damn business. Nobody.
Yeah.
And then what does he do? He sets up a snitch hotline so neighbors can report each other. And that's not even it. The only thing, right? They had SWAT teams shooting paintballs at people who were outside past curfew. And there's video of that. And I should have uploaded it. Maybe I'll play it my next podcast because it's on my phone. But crazy stuff. And he has all types of viewpoints that to me are not indicative of the average Midwestern person. And so it's just sort of funny because I think what Walz is he is the Democrat Party's idea of what Midwest is, right? He is San Francisco's conception of what somebody in the Midwest is. Okay, he takes a couple pictures of some cute animals, he duck hunts, whatever it is. Oh, he must be immediately just like the Midwestern people. But I think most people in the Midwest see past that. In fact, when you look at his numbers, he polls terribly, even when he won, with Midwestern people in his demo. He only did good in the city. And so I think that people see past the act. I feel like it's somebody cosplaying as sort of this Midwestern dad with American values, Well, I don't buy it for a second.
Okay. All right. He served 25 years. I really respect that. You know.
Sure. Yeah, me too.
I really respect that. And he is a public servant. I respect that. I don't like the lying. I've heard from Minnesotans. They don't like him because of those reasons you just said, you know. So to me, he's your typical non-trusting kind of like, you know, I want to be your everyday man, you know, politician, but he's not, you know, like.
All right, I got a comment here from CJC. JD Vance made a 180 in his support for Trump. Was he lying? All right, so I guess the premise of that question is that once you make a decision about something, you can't change your mind, right? You can't change your mind. People are allowed to change their mind about whatever they want. So if JD Vance didn't support Trump and then changed his mind, he has the right to do that. That's different from somebody saying, hey, I went to war and carried these weapons and it never happened. Unless he has a time machine where he can go back and make a different decision, he's lying. JD Vance isn't lying, he's just changing his mind. So you're comparing apples and oranges. It's sort of a logical fallacy because you asked a question that wasn't in relation to really what we're talking about. But I get where you're coming from. Let's see what else is what other comments do we have?
I agree really fast as you're looking that that shows as far as with Vance, you know, a willingness to kind of I don't want to say grow or just really kind of like see where this leader is coming from, and then like you said, you know, oh, okay, well, we can work there is common ground. That's a big difference than lying about being in war.
Sure.
Not being, you know, being death. The IV stuff. I mean, there's a lot of fibbing on Walz's part.
There's kind of some, I mean, use Walz's own weird weird slogan here. Those are some weird things to lie about. Mike Loves Cat says, you guys do damn fine shows like this. Love it. Thank you for the feedback. Yeah, that's great. It's fun. I think me and Paulie did a show, I don't know, some months ago, and we kind of enjoyed it and had a big audience. And so we decided that we'd do it a few more times. Okay, Paulie, so I have another video for you here. I want to get your reaction on.
All right.
And I'd love to hear the audience's reaction too. This is Kamala and Walz interviewing each other, talking about tacos, because they still yet they have not. They have yet to sit down with a regular media outlet and do an extended interview. So instead, they sat down with each other and did a short interview. This is just a clip. Have you seen it, Walz?
Hey, why dare you call me Walz? What's wrong with you?
Have you seen it, Paulie?
No. He wishes he had the bigote. This is real taco right here. Taco bigote. Let me see what you got.
All right.
Like I have white guy tacos and
What is that? Like mayonnaise and tuna? What are you doing?
pretty much ground beef and cheese.
That's okay. Do you put any flavor in it?
No.
Oh.
Here's the deal. No, they said to be careful and let her know this, that black pepper is the top of the spice level in Minnesota,
I'm the first vice president, I believe, who has ever grown chili peppers.
Well, trying to expand my food knowledge.
We've got some cantaloupes. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
All right, so Kamala is the first vice president to ever grow chili peppers. So she's breaking all types of glass ceilings. What do you think about that video? As a taco connoisseur, Mexican-American, former Democrat, how do you feel about that?
I see what they were trying to do, Kamala's campaign. Again, let's humanize them. Let's talk about tacos, about, stuff that people like. And, I got my white guy tacos, There's a place called, in Carlsbad. It's called, I just got this hat, Senor Grubby's. And Senor Grubby's has gringo tacos, and they're delicious. The breakfast tacos, ham, cheese, eggs, and papas. So that's a legit gringo white man taco. What he was talking about, ground beef and cheese, that's a Taco Bell taco. That's like he didn't even get his white boy taco correct. He's not even a real white boy. It's like, talk about, ground beef. You know what I'm saying? Like, even that is fully, like, I don't believe it.
I don't believe it either. I think he was just saying that. I think it was an act.
Just saying that. I'm so white. I'm ground beef.
I like ground beef tacos. I like asada tacos, but I'm saying I don't mind ground beef tacos. I've had them. I don't like Taco Bell. Taco Bell I haven't been able to eat for 20 years. I don't know what happened to them. I feel like when I was younger, they always seemed good at like 2 a.m, and now I can't eat it or I'm sick for like a week. But go ahead.
No, it's just like, hey, dude, you've never eaten a taco. Shut the F up.
I don't know. I don't want to be the taco gatekeeper. But I thought it was sort of a cheesy video. And those are the types of things that to me, like they do more damage than help because it seems so contrived. The whole campaign's contrived. The most real thing that I saw was those last 15 minutes of Kamala's speech. And a few weeks ago when she told some protesters to shut up, that I'm speaking now. That's Kamala. Mm-hmm.
She's a prosecutor, man. She's a cop. Like she's tough, man.
Okay, and we're going to get to that in a second. I want to answer a couple things here. So CJC again, did you guys criticize Trump's lies and rhetoric? Missed that video. Well, I'll tell you this much. There's no shortage of outlets criticizing Trump and pointing out all of his lies. In fact, virtually every media outlet out there does that. So if we did that all the time, we wouldn't be any different. And so because there's such a shortage of people that actually talk about Walz and his lies, that's what I find interesting. Now, video aside, I've written a ton of columns about Trump's lies. In fact, I wrote one 2 weeks ago in my newsletter where I wrote all types of stuff. I pointed out every flaw, every mistake, all the lies he made when he was president, and even made a case why people shouldn't vote for him. So, look, I'm not pro-Trump. but I'm definitely not pro Kamala and Walz either. And, you know, you can go back and find plenty of things that I've written that are critical of Trump. But this mindset that just because I criticize the Democrat Party, that somehow that means that, oh, you know, I'm just such a fan of everything Republicans do. You know, we got to get out of that mindset. How about just listening to the criticisms and admit the fact that the Democrat Party tries to paint itself as this sort of like this morally superior political party taking the high road, while all the while putting a liar on its pedestal, no different than Trump. The cult of anti-Trump is every bit as brainwashed and every bit as gullible as the cult of Trump that it claims to be standing up against. And so what I like to do is I like to speak on, I think, the hypocrisy of the Democrat Party right now. That's what's interesting to me. And so that's my answer to that question. I'll do another comment here. Raf M. Someone with Midwestern values that actually pushes working class policies makes more sense than any Republican. I mean, far right Republicans are the furthest away from any working class party. Okay, so I guess working class policies means setting up snitch hotlines so the working class can tell on each other. Or maybe it means price control so independent working class businesses can't make a profit. Yeah, that sounds really working class to me. Look, I have a hard time believing that either one of these parties really care about the working class. I think it's a joke. I think people should vote on a local level. Maybe on a local level, maybe a Republican in one party makes sense in one part of the country. Maybe in another part of the country, a Democrat makes sense. Vote whoever represents your community, your family, your interests. That's fine. But this idea of only voting red all the time or only voting blue is nonsense. It's what the politicians want. It's how they get away with not fulfilling their promises because they know they just have that vote locked up. The most disservice that you can do to your country is just blindly give away your vote to one party or the other. Paulie, you are muted. Oh, there you go. Let me see. For some reason.
Oh, yeah. Vote blue no matter who.
Right. Well, I didn't hear. I only heard the last part of what you said.
No, that's all I said.
Oh.
You know, that's what I grew up on.
Sure. Yeah.
That's what I grew up on. I have no problem, chat audience. I have no problem criticizing the Democratic Party. I was a lifelong Democrat, and you know, on the front lines of marches and endless fundraisers, and you know, this is not the same Democratic Party. That's all I'm saying. That's just me. That's just me.
Well, and I think look, to Kamala's defense, I think Kamala is trying to change that. I think that's why they're saying kind of this pro-America rhetoric, why they're talking about cutting red tape, all these things that Democrats didn't used to talk about. I think she is trying to remake the party. I think that's possible, or she's just simply trying to be duplicitous and talk out of both sides of her mouth.
And RC from NYC had said in the chat that Walz did pass the was it the food program for all the kids in his state?
Yeah, the free lunches.
Lunches, incredible. I know he passed some other stuff that I'm not a fan of, but on that one, you tip the hat. You say good job. And that's another problem is that, because it's a Republican good idea or Democrat good idea, you can't celebrate it because it's not your party's good idea.
Yeah.
So that's another problem that we've done.
Oh, I totally agree. Look, right? I mean, for me, I'm not a big government guy. I prefer just the less government, the better. I'm happier. But I am willing to support some social programs and things like that. I absolutely have no problem paying a little bit more in taxes so kids can get lunches who don't have the money to get lunches and things like that. So I think it's good. I think it's smart. I think it's dumb for Republicans to attack that type of thing. I think it's something that I think most reasonable people should be able to get behind. And that's when we're at our best as a country, when we find those mutual kind of policies that we can address. Yeah. So I agree with you.
Yeah. And then there's a lot of things that we can unite in regards to taking care of impoverished children, absolutely 100%, their education and feeding them. I think some of these other policies and things that they've passed, it's culture wars I want nothing a part of. And how does it help out? How does it help out our economy? How does it help our neighborhoods?
Okay.
Our neighbors?
All right. So here's Kenneth Castillo. When have Republicans ever had a good idea? All right. So I'll give you one right now. How about not taxing tips, which Democrats stole from Republicans? That was Trump's idea, and then Kamala came along and then took that away. There's one for you.
I got another one.
Sure.
Go ahead. Go
ahead. I mean, I can go off all night about ideas that.
Well, how about a Trump idea?
That was a Trump idea. Yeah.
PPP loans.
Oh, PP. See, I disagree with you on that, but I know a lot of people
like. But I, as a small business that got affected from COVID, when it went down, I lost all my clientele. I was destitute. It's to where I'm still haven't climbed out of it. The PPP program was incredible for me in my small business. And I'll check the boxes, Kenneth. Right, small business, Latino, in an impoverished area, and I got taken care of. When Biden came in, he got rid of it. He brought it back, which he did with a lot of other stuff. We won't say about. He brought it back, but at that time, it started getting frauded, and he had to end it. But I got to give Trump the win on that one. I give him the loss on how he handled COVID, though.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you another proposal that was great by Republicans, and that was eliminating permits for occupational licensing. So, for example, there was a couple states in the Southwest, Utah was one of them, where there were these barriers that were created by Democrats who said you have to have a license in order to hair braid from home. And it just absolutely impacted a lot of Black families who had like hair braiding businesses at home because the barrier to entry was so expensive.
Yeah.
And part of the law was you had to take all these classes, and you see the same thing with taco trucks right now in California and some other states where the left, the paternalistic left, just drowns you in permits. Okay, so occupational licensing. So it was Republicans that came along and removed those laws so you can have Black hair braiding businesses and things like that without you didn't have this barrier to entry that some bureaucrat that brought forward because it sounded good. And so, this is one of the problems I have with the Democrat Party, which is the paternalism that exists of the Democrat Party. Their solution to everything is always more government. It's always like, well, how can we fix this with government? How can we regulate this as government? How can we raise the barrier to entry? It's never just, how can we step away and let people figure this out themselves? How can we back off a little bit and give people some space? As somebody who owns a business right now, never in my life did I think that my biggest competitor would be the government. Almost half of my monthly expenses, almost half, are because of the government and compliance and all of this stuff that I got to pay just to be compliant. It is absolutely insane the amount of money that you have to pay if you own a business. And Democrats, they don't think about this. Like, it just sounds good. And then, it stifles innovation. It prevents new businesses from being created. I would love it if the Democrat Party would start cutting red tape. I heard Kamala float that term out. I'm going to cut red tape. But then she turned around and said, I'm going to implement price controls and have a 30%, tax on this. So I want to hear some solid examples on how they're going to cut red tape. Meaningful.
How?
Look at what happened with journalism in California, right? I forget, SB, whatever that bill was, where basically they said, if you're going to hire a freelancer and you're going to pay that freelancer X amount of times throughout the year, you have to give them healthcare coverage. Well, that completely backfired. What it did is it forced businesses to not work with the same freelancers over and over and over because nobody can afford to pay for the health insurance. And freelancers wanted to work. Like, they wanted to work. So they either had to get paid under the table or you had to find a way around it.
I mean, we could go down the list, right? How have we combated homelessness in the state of California? Right? Gavin's 10-year plan's been, it's 20th anniversary of Gavin's 10-year plan. And the tens of millions of dollars.
Well, I don't know if you saw Gavin come out today and acknowledge that his policies have failed.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw that.
I give him credit.
I give him credit. I saw the headline. I haven't seen the video yet, but he basically blamed the Democrats, like his own people. Yeah. Mark D. I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
It's like scariest words, right? That you can hear is I'm from the government. I'm here to help.
Film Threat is in the chat. Alan Ning the Merciless. That's Chris Gore's editor in chief there at Film Threat. What's up, Alan?
Oh, he must be in your chat because I don't see him on my
Oh, yeah, Ning the Merciless. Oh, you got to look on your StreamYard chat. You don't see Ning?
All destinations, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see anything.
Oh.
So, yeah, I don't.
He says, no to free lunches. The quality and nutritional levels are far worse than when I paid for it. Kids don't eat free meals. Kids don't eat free lunches. That's what he was saying.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, I know everybody has a different perspective on this. I think at least some meal is better than no meal. It's not a hill that I'm going to die on. I'm okay with some, certain social safety nets like that. There are plenty of kids that, that's the only food that they get. And so, that's not something that I'm going to push back on. What I would say is, there's a lot of money that gets clogged up in the pipeline that's supposed to go to schools, that goes up to the administrators and things like that gets lost along the pipeline. But back to Gavin Newsom, I think Gavin Newsom is a very sort of nuanced guy. At times, he comes across as aloof and super left and is just, terrible. And then other times, he'll just do random things that you're like, why is he doing that? He's just going to make everybody mad in his own state. And one of those things is the law he recently passed about homelessness. And he took that page, by the way, out of Portland's book because Portland passed it first. And because Portland is a horrible homeless problem and they have a horrible drug problem. You go downtown Chinatown, there's like people overdose in the middle of the street. It was really bad when they decriminalized all those, basically getting in trouble for all those hard drugs. It had a horrible effect on Portland, and Portland was already, having issues.
Right.
So I was surprised to see Portland do that, but they did. They reversed the decriminalization and then they outlawed basically, homeless camping. You still see it everywhere, so it's going to take him a while. But I saw Gavin Newsom do that, and I was surprised. And another thing, he came out today and said that basically Democrat policies have failed the state of California when it comes to homelessness. And I was really surprised to hear him say that. Yeah. So I give him credit, because at times he has these moral clarity.
Oh, I can't go that. I can't give you that, man.
Even if it's self-serving, right? Both things could be true.
I gotta watch what I say. I gotta watch what I say. But yeah. So, what do we think about? We got people in the chat, man. What do you got? There we go.
What do you think of Gavin? Is there a future for him for the Democrat Party, or is he just a slick talker? He's definitely a slick talker. In fact, I think being too smooth hurts him. I don't think that Gavin Newsom can get elected right now because there's too many problems that California is having as far as like homelessness and drug issues and things like that. And so the rest of the country, when they hear the word California, they don't want to be California. I've said this before. I just toured 30, 35 cities, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere I went, the moment I told them I was from the West Coast or I mentioned Portland, they were just like, oh, how horrible. Yeah, horrible.
Yeah.
We don't want anything to do with it. You guys are crazy over there. And so I was surprised, because it used to be that everybody's like, oh, I love the West Coast. I wish I was there.
Yeah. It's
not like that anymore. And so I don't think Gavin can come onto the scene and everybody's just going to be like, oh, yeah, Gavin. And look, to Kamala's credit, she's done pretty good shedding the whole San Francisco thing that if the Republicans were smart, they would keep attaching that to her. But Trump's not a very disciplined guy. But that would really hurt her. But she framed herself before Republicans got a chance. That's smart politics. She branded herself first as a prosecutor, but she's kept San Francisco largely out of it.
Well, she did, any of the really far left cultural issues, she kind of kept at bay in the speech. There was a line about being able to love who you love with pride. She did say that, but that's different than, being, so obvious about it. I'm not, and what else did she say here? Yeah, I mean, if anything, she just sounded like a centrist,
You're talking about Kamala?
Yeah, in her speech. She really didn't sound like you said, like she was, like your typical San Francisco politician. You're right.
Yeah. Here's Kenneth again, who, by the way, for people that don't know, Kenneth is a friend. So I like Kenneth. And one thing I like about Kenneth, other than the fact that he was one of two guys that I turned to when I was making my film and was always gracious with his time and helped me out a lot when I was making my film. He's also somebody who's never shy to share their opinion. And so, I like Kenneth. So for those in the comment section that don't realize that, Kenneth is a friend of the show. So Kenneth says, if all men were angels, there would be no need for government. And that's absolutely true. Yeah, I agree. Look, I'm not an anarchist. And I think that I might be wrong, but I believe that was a quote from one of the founders. And I think, but I could be wrong. But there was much sentiment, like he just said, among the founders. The founders were not anarchists. They might have been insurrectionists in some ways, pushing back against the British government, but they were not anarchists. And so our country is designed to have government. And, I think the great debate that we have is how much government. And so, in political science, my degree is in political science, so I love talking political science. In political science, you have positive liberty and negative liberty. And it's not good or bad. It's just that's what they're called. But the difference between these two philosophies is basically, so James Madison kind of said, so yeah, there you go. Okay, nice. So the difference between these philosophies is freedom to and freedom from. So right now, largely when we talk politics, is two-party country. One party largely talks freedom from the government, freedom from the government telling me what I do with my guns, freedom from the government telling me what to do with my business, those types of things. So that's usually Republicans. The Democrat Party tends to fall on the other side, which is freedom to. I have the freedom to healthcare. I have the freedom to be safe at school. I have the freedom to have an abortion, those types of things. And so these are classic philosophical divides that go way, 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 way back if we're just talking political science. But the difference between them from a government standpoint is one is bigger government, more involved government, one is less government. So we got to think of government on a spectrum when we think about how this country was founded. So some people believe the government's too big. It's much bigger than anything the founders ever intentioned. And then some people think there's plenty of room. We're not communist, Cuba. We're not China. We have flexibility. We have money. So why can't government solve some of these problems? I think it's an interesting debate. I get both ends. I'm a limited government guy. I'm kind of a classical liberal in that sense, but they're fun debates to have. You got any thoughts, Paulie?
No, man. No, I mean, it's all good to, all those high ideals that you're talking about and how
that's the political nerd in me. I'm sorry.
No, that's good. But, at the end of the day, it's who do you trust? And how was it? How was life? How was your life for the last 4 years? Was it better? Was it worse? If it was better, if it was good, you got no problems where you're at, then you're probably going to vote the same party. If it was worse, and you're just going to change hands. I mean, and that's also a good thing that we can do that. It's not just going to be the same.
Sure. Yeah.
You know.
Well, okay, Paulie. So let me ask you something. What about, and we see this a lot in our community, and it kind of breaks my heart. This is really prevalent among the Latino community and in the Black community.
Tacos?
What about those people who say, I don't notice a difference? What about those people? They don't say it was better under this person or that. They just say it's terrible under both. I don't notice a difference. What do you say to those people? Because there's a lot of those people, and they're apathetic, and they don't engage in the voting process because they feel like both parties are the same. And I get it, because there are times that I feel that way too. But what do you say to them? How do you overcome that cynicism?
Well, I mean, that's a big majority of Americans, right? They're not engaged. They don't vote. I mean, I think what they're probably just trying to do is just survive and mind their own business. It's probably nothing's going to change in that regard until their freedoms are directly taken away. Like they can really like see it in their everyday life. Until then, they're not gonna. They're not. They're not gonna. You can't change that type of apathy to a certain degree. Ignorance. You can. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I say you can suggest, and if you're in those circles, suggest getting educated on something that they're passionate about. But other than that,
yeah, it's hard because the truth is they probably could see some change if they participated more and if more people voted, because then you would see a bigger difference, because you'd have probably a higher turnover of politicians in certain areas and things like that. But to have the type of change that is noticeable sometimes, it takes a lot of people coming in and out of Congress. Sometimes it takes having a president with a mandate in Congress in order to actually push through meaningful change. And the way that our system's designed is it's not designed to pass things fast for that reason. So you can't change things on a whim. And so I think some of it is also understanding government. I think the general idea of waiting for government to solve your problems is bad in general. But I'm not saying there aren't problems that government shouldn't solve. Okay, I have something else for you, Paulie. So there was a pivot, and you saw this in the speech that we watched. And the pivot was strength related to the border strength, border security. This is a transition from the typical talk the Democrats used to engage in, and clearly is in response to the polling that shows the vast majority of Americans, even Latinos, are concerned about the border.
Yeah.
My own theory is that some of that is because of the changing face of immigration, but that's a different topic. And so Kamala has released a new ad, and that ad is her talking about how tough she's going to be on the border. Now, you might have already seen it, but I want to get your thoughts on it and show it to the audience, and then we'll go
watch it.
Kamala Harris has spent decades fighting violent crime. As a border state prosecutor, she took on drug cartels and jailed gang members for smuggling weapons and drugs across the border. As vice president, she backed the toughest border control bill in decades. And as president, she will hire thousands more border agents and crack down on fentanyl and human trafficking. Fixing the border is tough. So is Kamala Harris.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
All right. What do you think of that, Paulie?
Yeah. Well, the first part was they did usually though when they say something like that, they'll cite the case, or like they'll have it in small print. They'll have the I didn't get that. So oh yeah, she went up against drug cartels. She backed the border, the border bill. And then the last thing is like she will be tough against fentanyl if she's elected. So the last part was basically what Trump is doing.
Okay, so now that means we have both parties, both our major political parties, who are now tough on the border. So what does that mean for immigrants? Or is that good for immigrants?
Well, you're talking about that come here illegally, like undocumented?
Either or. I'll share my view real quick.
Okay, yeah,
what do you
go
think
ahead.
about it? Because I feel like the problem won't be solved by hiring more border agents.
No.
Kamala is saying this in the same way that Trump is saying this, because the average voter thinks that's what's going to solve the problem. But I think the truth is the problem is going to be solved by fixing the immigration process, the process of becoming a citizen, the waiting process, the courts, the fees, all of that type of thing. Right now, it's very convoluted. It's complicated. You wait for months. It can take years to become a citizen. Sometimes it's quicker to become a citizen of another country first and then become a citizen of the U.S. And so all of these kind of complicated administrative issues that bog down the process are what need to be undone. They're very bureaucratic.
Right.
And so I don't think it's going to happen with border agents. And so that's my only beef. It's the same beef I had with Trump. And look, I won't say that I'm necessarily open borders, like anybody just walks across and I get trying to understand the people that come here, but I'm very pro-immigration. But yeah, we've got to solve the administrative side of that if we really want to fix this problem.
Yeah. So you're talking about just kind of like the reform on that logistical end, like the process of becoming a legal resident, like that pathway. And that makes sense, Well,
Paulie, that comment's for you. You were talking about this a little bit earlier.
The latest border bill mentioned was passed by bipartisan Senate, but Trump put his boot to House Republicans and the bill died there. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the bill also earmarked millions to Ukraine, which is why he was not the deal. This is the wrong deal, and he's been consistent with that. So
this is actually a really good comment by Fletcher here, which is most people are not well versed on the Nordic countries. They're small, homogeneous, and don't have an impact on the U.S. We do sometimes compare, or pundits compare the U.S. to these other countries. But the U.S. is, I think there's 250 million people, 300 million people in the U.S.
Yeah.
Very diverse country, diverse ethnically, culturally, racially, and it's big. We got a lot of people. At least as far as the Western Hemisphere goes, we're pretty packed. And so our problems are not easily as fixed as some of these smaller countries who are homogeneous, I guess. Homogeneous. All right. What do you say? We wrap up in 7 minutes or so? Paulie?
Sure.
Because otherwise I'll go all night.
Right. Yeah. I think also too, I wanted to say in regards to her speech, the pro-Israel stance, that surprised me. And you were saying that's gonna lose a lot of her. What do you think? More of the Dems, hardcore lefties?
Well, I mean, she reminded me kind of Hillary Clinton in when she was giving that. And I'm not saying because she's a woman. I'm just saying that Hillary Clinton could be really liberal in some areas and progressive even, but there were a couple areas that she could be tough on. And one of those was she was a capitalist. She said as much many times, and she defended capitalism. And she was also an advocate of our adversaries, or I mean our allies in places like Israel. And she was kind of that type of throwback. Kamala, I'm sorry I keep mispronouncing. I'm not doing it on purpose. She
that's racist, by the way, every time you do that. All right. So
she is trying to do that as she's kind of a throwback in some ways. I think
some of those
drew a lot.
Right. Some of those, what she was hitting was like kind of like she sounded like a 90s Democrat tonight in a speech. Not that she is.
Sure.
I'm just saying in that speech, I think that's why it was pretty successful at times.
Yeah. No, I think so. I saw aspects of Kennedy and aspects of Hillary that she drew from. And then I saw her own twist on things. Okay, so Mark D with the C says, Dems want everyone to come in without restrictions because they know most will be future Dem voters. If immigrants skewed are, how long do you think it would take for them to close the border? So I actually don't agree with that. I don't. I'll put it back up so other people can see it. I actually think it's the reverse. I just think that Republicans are not engaged enough to understand it. The average immigrant who comes here is not a far left progressive. They're socially conservative in a lot of ways.
Yes.
And in many ways, they're ripe for the Republican Party to take in. Let me give you an example. When you look at the decline of religion, Christianity in particular in the United States, we've seen about a 20-point drop since 2005 or 2010. Okay, about 10, 15 years, we've seen a 20-point drop. We're still just above 50% as a country. I think we're around 65%, something like that. But we used to be 90%. The main factor in keeping that number that high has been immigrants, because the vast majority of new Christians in this country are not new baptisms. They are immigrants from China, Africa, and Latin America who come here because they can't. They either can't worship freely, like in places like China, or they're just simply looking for a better place. And so they're inherently conservative in many ways. I'm not saying you can't be Christian and be progressive. But generally speaking, when you break down the demographics, you tend to see similarities among people of faith and people who aren't. Now, to Kamala's credit, I think she's trying to change that. She actually mentioned faith in her speech. And I think she recognizes that there is this kind of strong agnostic, if not atheistic streak on the left that has pushed away people of faith. And
they pushed away God.
You know,
and their religion, you could even say, is you know, it's their cultural issues. That's
without a doubt, yeah. And those cultural issues, to go back to the statement that was made, those cultural issues are winning issues for Republicans when it comes to immigrants. But most of them don't. They're just not in proximity to most immigrants, so they don't even know. It's like they're so detached, and they end up going back to their old trough in the South.
Right, but you say that, and yet they're still polling really well for Trump.
Who?
Latinos.
Yeah. Oh, they are. Yeah.
Comparatively. Yeah, and just to add to that, you know, I know this immigrant family. One of the gentlemen is they're either both Guatemalan or one's Mexican, one's Guatemalan, super religious, like evangelical, and they just had their second baby. Wonderful people. I mean, these are like our next door neighbors, and he runs a cleaning business, like commercial towels. You know, like you're always seeing them with clean bundles of you know, towels. And like they're like the American dream.
Mm-hmm.
And she just had a boy. God bless them. But I've never taught them about politics. I'd be very curious to hear what their politics are. I mean, pro-life. I mean,
I'll just ask him one day.
Yeah.
Who do you vote for?
Well, I mean, you know, but you're absolutely right. How does the Republican party engage with people like that without vilifying them? Because I don't like the vilification.
I don't like it. It drives me crazy. I mean, it's one of the things that drives me crazy about the Republican Party is that they are so detached. And to me, it's not that hard. It's just so many of these people in the Republican Party. I mean, they come from the South and Midwest. They don't live in immigrant communities. I used to live in an immigrant community, and I don't mean a community that was just Mexican American. I mean an immigrant community where it was like 65% people from Mexico coming up there to work on the farms, and then it was another 15-20% Russian on top of that. And you should have seen it on Sundays and Saturdays. I mean, church, people out for church all downtown, very conservative, a lot of families. And so, I just don't think Republicans, all of these old guys that have been in the party forever, they're not from that. So they don't relate to it. So there's going to have to be a turnover in the types of people who are in the Republican Party. And frankly, the Republican Party is consolidated in the South, in Midwest and East Coast, whereas a lot of these immigrant communities are in the West. And the Republican Party is largely seated the West Coast anyways.
I think that demographic has also changed, though, too. A lot of them are just in big cities, man. There's a lot of immigrants in New York, Detroit, Atlanta. A lot of Latinos in Atlanta. So I used to be where it was just the Southwest. That's a different ballgame now.
Well,
and there's such a diversity of Latinos that it would really the party that really understands this is going to win like the next 50 years.
Well, I agree, and I look to Mike Madrid. To his credit, his book, The Latino Century, I think touches on this really well. The majority of Latinos, though, still live in 3 states: Florida, Texas, California. 2 of those states are Republican. So it's interesting to think of that in that way. So I have a poll right here. This is August 14th through 16th, CBS YouGov poll. I'll show you why this matters. So if you look right here on who's planning to vote for who, Donald Trump is polling in 41% of the Latino vote and 17% of the Black vote. Okay, so 41% of the Latino vote and then 17% of the Black vote. So let's put that in some perspective. 41% is near a historic high. The highest a Republican has ever gotten was 43, 44%, and that was George Bush. George Bush did that twice. George W. Bush got 43, 44% of the Latino vote in both 2000 and 2004. And Trump, when he ran last time, only got 29%. He's up to 41% now. So that's more than a 10% increase. Now, Democrats used to get 92% of the Black vote. And Trump right now is polling at 17%. So Democrats have also lost 10% of the Black vote. That is fascinating. And that could be enough to move the dial in a number of states. And so when you see pollsters say, hey, look, Kamala's got 58% of the Hispanic vote. Well, that's not that great because they used to get 77, 78%.
Yep.
All right.
I've been and the lowest Republicans were getting like what, high 20s, low 30s. So yeah. Yep.
But I'll say this: I've seen this happen before, where the polls are really high, one way or the other, and then everybody gets in the voting booth, and they return home, as they say. And so this could also cut. This could cut both ways.
But what is home nowadays?
That exactly right.
Did they move? The last 4 years, they have moved their homes more to the right. Will it pay off though? Is it going to be a deciding factor? We'll see.
Well, it'll come down to those swing states, right?
Right.
The Electoral College.
Yeah, and it's how the next. What do we got? We still got a lot of time, man.
Well, and this is why you can make an argument or possibly predict that Kamala peaked too soon, which is crazy because this never would have been the case 20 years ago, peaking too soon in August. But in today's age, the digital age, where everybody's attention is going a million different directions.
Yeah.
It feels great now. And she's had a heck of a ride the last month and a half. More power to her. I give her credit. Like, that's good. It's great. But she's got to ride out 2.5 months now where she doesn't have any events. She doesn't get to pick a VP. She doesn't get to enter the race.
She's got to talk now.
Now it's got to be natural press that just comes from her talking about her policies. And so that could change a lot. And so the benefit here again is everybody already knows who Trump is.
Yep.
Trump is a bloviator. Trump is confrontational. Trump loves to talk about himself. Trump is very bold and,
bombastic,
bombastic.
Yes.
Very bombastic. And he's going to make crazy statements, but it doesn't faze anybody at this point. So everybody's like, it's Trump.
But will it faze her?
Exactly. So people don't know her yet. This was supposed to be her introduction, and it will introduce her to some people. But that's interesting because that could be dangerous for her.
Yeah. Or I mean, anytime that she talks to the press that's not controlled, and again, I think it's brilliant politics that Trump has done these huge podcasters, and then he's done the Elon Musk. It's gonna pay dividends down the line, and he's gonna keep on doing that. Kamala's got to do the same thing.
You know what I think is brilliant is, so I get doing the podcaster thing. I think some of that is because out of necessity, because he just, he's not getting good press with the bigger media outlets. I think what has been very smart of Trump has been going into a lot of these black communities where politicians simply don't go. He got a great reception in I think it was the South Bronx. He got a great reception in Detroit. And you're seeing some dividends out of that.
I want to see Arizona tomorrow. That's going to be interesting.
I still see this. I don't see him doing the same thing with Latinos. And that's a frustrating thing, right? I don't see him going into the hood talking to Latinos, right? I feel like you're still seeing him making everybody mad at Mexicans and immigrants, And so I would like to see him start reaching out and going into the hood and talking to Mexicans too, and to Latinos, right? I know he did in the Bronx. He got
in the
some
Bronx.
Of that.
Was a lot of Latinos, man, and he pointed them out.
He did,
but
I want to see him talk to Mexican Americans because that's 65% of all Latinos in this country. And so, one thing about Trump, I'll give him credit, is that he'll go into the lion's den. He has no problem batting it back and forth.
Okay, so the thing is, he went to the lion's den with the black journalist thing. Yeah, man, he's not afraid. And what a Latino organization coalition would host him, because those are all so left. Like, I don't even know they would host him. They wouldn't even give him the platform. Eva Longoria spoke today. She was one of the main speakers before Kamala. Her and a couple other, investors. They bought into all these Spanish-speaking radio stations a couple of years ago. And there's like one that's conservative, but the majority of them aren't. Like, I don't know what's going on there with how successful they have been, or if they're part of the, Kamala campaign in Spanish. That's interesting.
We have a comment here from Zinger. We need to do a crossover stream between Dante James and Brandon Lauren Maxwell in the slant. I don't know who Dante James is.
Dante was my guest a couple of weeks ago. He's Verbal Riot. Yeah. He's a good dude.
Yeah.
No, I think you guys would have a great discussion.
Is he a political person or talks politics or something?
He is very much pushes back from Hollywood stuff to cultural wars issues. Yeah. Immigration, all that stuff. But yeah, he's good. He's on a Film Thread a lot.
Oh, okay. All right.
As well.
Yeah, well, I like Film Thread. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're cool. They have a cool channel, and I enjoyed going on their show.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess let me take this last comment, and then we'll go.
Yeah.
Because I've seen a couple comments here.
Yeah.
So
Boosh.
Trump just visited Washington Heights 3 months ago. Latino slant. He met
Mhm.
with and shook hands with locals. Mexicans were wearing mega hats. There's not a ton of Mexicans, I don't think, in Washington Heights. I'm sure there might have been
More
a few.
now.
Yeah, maybe there is. Maybe
More
I'm
now.
completely wrong, but I don't know. I know somebody that lives in Washington Heights, and I know there's a few out there, but it's not like where we live. It's not like the West Coast.
Well, RC from the NYCs of Washington Heights. He's in there right now. But I know he's pretty much a Dem. He's a Democrat.
Mhm.
He's a really good dude. Yeah,
Well,
I don't know how many Mexicans now are in. I think what Bush was alluding to is that there was Latinos with mega hats on
Yeah.
in Washington Heights.
let me give you some food for thought. I'm sorry, Paulie. I don't know if you're tired and if you really want to go. If you really want to go, I'll let you go. Because I know you get tired. I can go up all night and keep talking politics.
Yep.
I went to a lowrider meetup in Long Beach recently. Okay, I went to
Nice.
two of them. One was just lowrider show, so lowrider magazine, not a big deal. But I went to another one with a different organizer, and we had a ton of people out there, black and brown. We were in the hood, right across the street, over by 2-1 in Lewis. Warren G song, over there. Everyone knows Long Beach, right? We're right there in the hood.
Mhm.
And everybody I talked to was either a Trump supporter or didn't vote at all and hated both parties.
Mm.
I did not talk to one person who was like, I'm voting Democrat. Everybody I met was pro-Trump, adamantly pro-Trump, or they hated both parties. Now, most of those people probably aren't going to vote. A lot of them won't vote. But the sentiment is fascinating, and it's an undercurrent you see across social media. Because when I go on social media and I look at a lot of these massive podcasts, American Cholo, for example, Gil, my buddy Gil over there, there's a ton of them who have huge channels.
Yep.
All of them are very unhappy with Democrat Party.
Yeah.
And this is completely out of view of normal people and the Democrat Party. And I'm talking huge channels with a huge following. And that to me is one of the most fascinating stories. And, and frankly, I'm a part of it, and I'm not trying to be, I just am. And there is a huge movement of guys, a lot of them former gang members, guys who've been in prisons, guys in the streets, people in the lowrider community who, culturally, those are already conservative subcultures to begin with, which is what I think why it's hard for Democrats to wrap their mind around, or people on the outside. But it's really not, it shouldn't be that surprising. When there was rioting going on in LA, they had protests saying stay out of East LA. We wrote about it. Gustavo at the LA Times pointed it out. They were saying not here in East LA, and the lowrider clubs were basically saying don't loot. And I have the photos still of those lowrider clubs out there. And so, I think that if Republicans ever found a way to get everybody who feels that way to vote, they'd probably do a lot better than they do. Okay, is this for me, this comment?
Yeah, we ran a poll with Fletcher Williams in our Latino Slant live chat.
Oh, go ahead.
I wanted to share it. So if you want to bring it up, it's also in the chats. But we ran a poll. Thanks to everyone. 66 votes. Will Kamala speak Spanish for votes?
I hope not.
God, man. The winner with 43%. No, two tacos short. With 21%, yes, make tamales cheap again. 18%, we got Hyenas at home. And the last one was 16%. Maybe, where's my check? Oh,
Hey, we had 66 votes on that.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Sounds scientifically accurate to me.
Hey man, you know how we do. We do.
Yeah.
It's the real people voting.
Yeah. Well, Paulie,
Yeah.
I want to say thank you again for coming out. It was a blast. I appreciate you. This was kind of a last minute thing, but that's why I like you, man. You're always down for this type of thing. And, you know, we generally have a pretty good audience, and we did tonight too. And I enjoy being able to talk politics with someone. So thank you, Paulie.
No, thank you guys. Thank you, Brandon and Daily Chela. We'll put this on our slant page, feature this. Normally we do our political show live on Fridays, but since I'm live tonight, this will suffice. Maybe I will do a political video in the next day or two about the RFK and what he decides to do and how it affects the Latino vote. I in my heart of hearts, my perfect world, I would have loved for RFK Jr.
I want to say thanks to Fletcher too, because I always see him helping promote us in the comment section and stuff like that. So you got a good wing guy there, Paulie.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. And thank you to everybody who shared their comments. I appreciate it. Everybody, whether or not I agreed with the comments, I love going back and forth. Make sure to follow Paulie at Latino Slant, and make sure to follow me at my YouTube channel. That's Brandon Lauren Maxwell, at Brandon L. Maxwell. You can find it. We'll do this again. I do my podcast every Tuesday. Paulie, when do you do you kind of just pop up randomly?
We're now we're now on Monday nights because I don't want to go on Tuesday or Wednesdays, and then Friday during the day. Yes, and I do want to say what a great chat you guys are, because this is a very good example of just a diversity of thought happening within the Latino community here, from Raf M to RC from the NYC to people on the right. This is what it's all about. It's an exchange of ideas and, talking about it.
Yep, I agree. All right. Good night, everybody. Have a good night. We will talk soon.
Adios. Blue.